but it's pheromone, and that's a normal kind of thing. However, if you get excessive quantities of it, it can really damage the cells. And again, this showing chronic renal failure. That's what this is. Here the kidneys and the ureter. And that's what it looks like histologically. And again, renal tubular damage, acute necrosis in the kidney. And why do you think I got that on? She probably mentioned this to you. That's a cast, and that's in the urine sediment. Now, this material that's forming in the tubules, like this, takes the shape of the tubule. And as it comes out, of course, it's not going to be as long as the tubule, because it's going to break off in places. It will look like that. Now, there are several kinds of cast. This one is referred to as a waxy cast or a protein cast because it doesn't really have any interior structure to it. It's just protein. You can also have what's called granular cast. And in that situation, you have little things that look like nuclei sitting in here. So what's the difference in the two? What do you think probably happened with a granular cast? If I kill tubular epithelial cells and they slough off too, what's going to happen? They're going to end up as, because they're coming out of a tubule that has its shape. So they would look like that too, except you still see some of the nuclei. What would the nuclei actually be? Would they be nice normal nuclei, or would they be pyknotic? If they sloughed off and they're dead, what would they be? Pyknotic. And this is protein 2 that's accumulating in liver cells. This is a human liver, and it does have these nodules on the surface, which indicates it's got a lot of fibrosis occurring. So what probably is this individual? What do you know in humans that causes cirrhosis of the liver? Alcohol. And this stuff in these cells is alcoholic hyaline, like that. These little red areas, that's protein. And of course you can get the cirrhosis that's occurring, that's the fibrous tissue and some fatty change. And that's what they actually look like with EM. So that's what's referred to as alcoholic hyaline. That's another kind of protein that accumulates in cells as a result of injury. Okay, carbohydrates. And the glycogen is a major one we think about. This is a big pale liver. Again, remember I said you couldn't really tell that the pale liver was due to glycogen or water accumulation. This one actually is due to glycogen. And this is a special stain for the glycogen. So what is this thing? Best part. And that's what it looks like when you look at it microscopically. That's it in H&E. It's black and white. That's why it looks funny. And with EM, it's this kind of stuff. But still, the cell is clear. And if you get higher magnification, you see this, and that's referred to as a rosette. And there's some in here too, some of the rosettes in there, but it's kind of hard to see them. And this is a child that has glycogen storage is one of the glycogen storage diseases. Why do you think his belly is so big? His liver is accumulating the glycogen. And that's what it looks like. That's a human liver that's full of glycogen. And this is a rabbit, actually. And a tumor occurred in the heart here that is associated with glycogen accumulation. And that's actually what it looks like histologically. This area. That's normal heart, here's that. That's this histologically. Clear looking area from the glycogen accumulation. What's the tumor of striated muscle called? Yeah, I know you know that. Yeah.
It's not rhabdomyosarcoma, is it?
No. Well, she's kind of right. And she said rhabdomyosarcoma. What part of that was wrong? The sarcoma part. Because when you say sarcoma like that, you mean like a malignant tumor. And you don't know if this thing is malignant or not. So she's right in saying rhabdomyoma. But to put the sarcoma on the end of it means you call it neoplastic, and you're calling it malignant, not neoplastic. So a tumor of striated muscle, just call it a rhabdomyoma, unless you know it's malignant. In other words, you see a whole lot of mitotic figures, or you see really, really big cells, or you see some funny looking mitotic figures, or you see some that have strange processes on. What is that last stuff I'm describing? Really, really big cells, some have abnormal mitotic figures in them, some have abnormal processes on them. You remember that term? What? Anaplasia. And if you see that, that means you got something that's really a bad actor. Okay? It means it's malignant. I was just messing with her. I said, no, she's pretty much so right. Okay. Complex carbohydrates. And here's a case where these things are accumulated. One of the slides I showed you earlier on said that when you have a lack of enzymes, you can get stuff building up in cells. This is one of those examples. And this is occurring in a cat. And these are in his neutrophils. You think this thing's going to work right with this stuff accumulating in it? No, it really doesn't. So this is a specific disease condition in cats, and it's genetic. Why do you think it's got a number behind it? Because it depends on which enzyme is missing. You know, and the same thing is true with glycogen storage disease. You can have glycogen storage disease type 1, type 2. And that's dependent on which enzyme is missing, because it will cause a different thing to accumulate, even though all of them are basically the same kind of thing. All of these, in this instance, are mucopolysaccharides, but the specific enzyme that's missing, and this one is delineated by the number behind it. And Gaucher's, which is another one of these complex carbohydrates. This happens in people, it happens in the liver, and in bones, and it happens in goats too. And this is showing the liver, and this material is accumulating in these cells. And this is showing the spleen. And it accumulates in the bone in goats too, but this is actually this one is from a goat, and that's the spleen, with these big foamy looking cells which have accumulated the material. Fucose is another one that can accumulate. Why do you think I got this dog on here? Because most of these things are genetic. Why is this dog on here? That's the breed it occurs in, or one. So, what is this dog? What breed of dog is it? It's a spaniel, but it's not a cocker spaniel. It's a what? That's a Springer's fan. So that's what happens. It accumulates in nerves, and these nerves with the bumps on them, that's where the material is accumulating. And when you look at it on the higher mag, these kind of pale looking areas, the cells that have accumulated is excessive amount of glucose. Complex lipids can also accumulate. And these are gangliosides, cerebrosides, and those kinds of things. And Alaskan malamutes are notorious for getting that. Cats also get this particular one. This one is Tay-Sachs, and that happens in cats and in people. And this is the material that's accumulating. You can see it with a special stain. And here is it with EM. And in this dog, this is a different one. And this is GM1, and that's GM2. This is the GM2, that's the GM1. Anyway, that's the material accumulating there, and this makes these violent looking kind of figures inside the cell. So, you think these neurons are going to work right? No, they don't. So, malamutes get one of these, and cats get another one of these. And you can go on down the line, there's thousands of these things, virtually. Okay, inclusion bodies. And these are some examples of inclusion bodies with H and E. So what's wrong with this dog?
Icteric.
He's icteric? Is the liver involved? Think his liver's involved? There's his gallbladder. What's wrong with the gallbladder? It's pale and thicker than usual. That's edema of the gallbladder, which is very characteristic of this condition. Now I look there. That's a perfect one. That's an inclusion body. Isn't that a hepatocyte? And that's it with EM. So, this is the liver. It's in a dog. So what's the disease problem? Infectious canine hepatitis. And what's the cause of that? Canine adenovirus. Why make you say one? Because canine adenovirus 2 causes a different disease. Okay? What does that cause? Canine adenovirus 2. Chemical. What do you think about this guy? Actually, you saw this before. We were talking about cell injury and cell death, and I showed you the inclusion bodies in the kidney, and he's anemic. He was eating linoleum. Yeah, this is lead. So I told you that inclusion bodies did not have to be from infectious agents, but they actually could be associated with metals. That's what they look like with the So this dog actually has inclusion bodies in the renal epithelium, and that can happen in kidney, in liver cells as well. And it also accumulates near the joints, in the epiphysis, and that's because it has affinity for these sulfhydryl groups, and there's a lot of that in the matrix, in cartilage, which is in the growth plate, so you see it accumulating there. Had a different x-ray that showed you this, but that's the same thing. And here's canine distemper and the inclusion bodies. Of course, it can affect the respiratory tract. That's actually in the urinary tract. It can affect the throughout the body. That's one of the inclusions there. There's another one there. There's one there. And these things histologically too. And that's what they look like with EM, intracytoplasmic.
Dr. Graham?
Mm-hmm.
How do we, so depending on if it's intracytoplasmic or intranuclear, is it dependent on just like retrovirus or not?
How do you determine if it is not a retrovirus?
Well, like if where we'll see the inclusion body.
Let me say that again now.
Are we like how do we determine if we'll see the inclusion body intranuclear or in the cytoplasm?
RNA viruses usually cause what? And DNA viruses cause what? Except for? Okay. Now, how do you determine which is which? Well, it depends on all of the other stuff that's going on around it. In this instance, this is a younger dog, got nasal discharge. What kind of history would I expect if this actually is canine understanding? What vaccination history would he have? None. Okay. So that kind of stuff is you have to put it all together. You can't just look at one picture and say, ah, that's that. You know, you have to put all of the things there. Okay, let's look at this one. What do you think? Why you say rabies? Does that look like the normal attitude in a dog? That's fierce, okay? And when we look here, what's that? That's an inclusion body. Where's the nucleus? There's the nucleus right there. There's an inclusion body, and there's one there. What do you call these things anyway? Well, the intracytoplasmic, but it's got a name to them too. Who? Yeah, negri bodies. So why are they pink and you call them negri bodies? Shouldn't they be black if you call them negri bodies? My name is Negri. I discovered these things so they get named after me. That's why they call them negri bodies. The guy that discovered these things and associated them with rabies, name was Negri. That's why they call them negri bodies, not because it has anything to do with the color. Okay? So, what kind of virus is this then? It's an RNA virus. You see what I'm saying, man? You have to put all of the other stuff around it. You can't just look at one picture and say, ah, that's, but when you know some history, when you know some other stuff, then you can come up with what it is. And that's, of course, what it looks like with EM. And this one you've seen before. This is the turkey, because when we were talking about cause and nature of disease, and when I gave you that rule about intracytoplasmic and intranuclear, this is a pox virus in turkeys. So where would we expect to find the inclusions in this? In the where? In the cytoplasm, because pox, even though it's DNA, that's the exception. Okay? So, as we look here, there's the inclusion body, the nuclei of these things. So, that's what it looks like microscopically. Yeah, all the virions and stuff in there. And that's close to maggot. And this cell is just degenerating, these two cells are degenerating as a result of the infection. So they're swelling, typical of cell injury. They can occur in snakes. This is a constrictor snake. And here are the inclusions. They suspect these things are due to a virus, but it's been very difficult to isolate the actual virus that's responsible for this. What they call this inclusion bite disease in snakes, and you usually see this in the big constrictors. So what are big constrictors? Boa constrictors, anacondas, that kind of stuff. See them in the big guys. Not really a rat snake, which is also a constrictor. And this is showing some with the,
Dr. Graham?
yep,
So basically there's a problem with the coloring of the snake?
problem with the, what now?
The coloring of the snake?
The coloring? Yeah, that's what tells you that's the inclusion bite. Because this is the normal intestinal epithelium, and then when you see something like that that's out of place, that tells me that's what that is. The inclusion.
Dr. Graham,
Mhm.
is that snake upside down?
Let me look and see. I don't know if he was upside down. Yeah, that's his, what this, his head is here, there's his tail, this is the bottom of the snake, not the top. So he's laying on his back essentially. And this is the last one that we'll talk about today. So, as I'm looking here, this is it with EM. There's the nucleus. This arrow is pointing to the inclusion bite. So what kind of virus is this?
Herpes virus?
No, it's really not a herpes virus. This is a pox.